The Army of Gondor. The Army of Gondor was the main military force of the greatest surviving realm of men in Middle-earth. Drawn from the kingdom's cities, provinces, and fiefs, it defended Gondor against Mordor, Harad, and other enemies. Its soldiers included infantry, archers, cavalry, and heavily equipped guards, while the greatest concentration of troops was found around Minas Tirith. Gondor's strength came from its long military tradition and defensive fortresses, but centuries of war had left the kingdom weakened by the time of the War of the Ring. The Army of Rohan. The Army of Rohan was famous for its mounted warriors, the Rohirrim. Rohan was a kingdom of horse lords, and its warriors could travel rapidly across the plains before striking an enemy with spears, swords, and bows. Their greatest advantage was mobility, allowing them to arrive where they were needed before an opponent expected them. Under King Theoden, the Rohirrim played a decisive role at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, where their charge broke through much of the forces surrounding Minas Tirith. The Army of Mordor. The Army of Mordor was the enormous military machine assembled by Sauron to conquer Middle-earth. It contained orcs, men from allied lands, trolls, siege crews, and other servants of the Dark Lord. Mordor could draw troops from its own territories while receiving reinforcements from regions such as Harad and Rhûn. Its greatest strength was its vast numbers and the terrifying power of Sauron behind it, allowing it to wage simultaneous campaigns against Gondor and other enemies. The Army of Isengard. The Army of Isengard was Saruman's personal war machine based around the fortress of Orthanc. Its core consisted of Uruk-hai, specially bred orc soldiers who were larger, stronger, and more capable of operating in daylight than many ordinary orcs. Saruman also commanded Dunlendings who hated Rohan and supplied additional manpower. The army was designed for rapid warfare, carrying weapons and equipment manufactured in the industrial complex surrounding Isengard. Its invasion of Rohan ended with the Battle of Helm's Deep and the destruction of Isengard's military power. The Army of the Witch King. The Army of the Witch King was the force commanded by Sauron's greatest servant, the Witch King of Angmar. It included orcs, men, siege troops, and the terrifying ringwraiths, who served as commanders and supernatural weapons. The Witch King led the assault on Minas Tirith during the War of the Ring and personally directed the breaking of the city's defenses. His army represented the most dangerous portion of Sauron's attack on Gondor before the arrival of the Rohirrim. The Army of Harad. The armies of Harad came from the southern lands beyond Gondor and were among Sauron's most important human allies. Haradrim warriors fought with distinctive weapons, shields, bows, and sometimes enormous war elephants called Mumakil. Their forces traveled north to support Mordor during the War of the Ring. At the Pelennor Fields, the Mumakil became one of the most frightening elements of the battle, although the Haradrim ultimately suffered heavy losses. The Army of Rhûn. The armies of Rhûn came from the eastern regions of Middle-earth and included the Easterlings, powerful human peoples who had long been associated with Sauron. Their warriors were equipped for large-scale warfare and were particularly important because of the enormous distance separating their homelands from Gondor. Forces from Rhûn fought against Gondor during the War of the Ring and helped keep the defenders of the West stretched across multiple fronts. The Army of the Dead. The Army of the Dead was unlike any normal army because its warriors were spirits rather than living soldiers. They were the dead men of Dunharrow, who had once sworn an oath to Isildur, but abandoned their duty when they were needed. Isildur cursed them to remain until they fulfilled their oath. During the War of the Ring, Aragorn summoned them to fight alongside him, and their supernatural presence overwhelmed the enemy at Pelargir before their oath was finally fulfilled. The Army of the Elves. The Elven armies were not a single unified military organization, but consisted of forces belonging to different Elven realms. Elves from places such as Lothlorien, Mirkwood, and Rivendell defended their lands against Sauron and his servants. Their soldiers were renowned for their archery, speed, perception, and skill with weapons. Although the elves were declining in number and preparing to leave Middle-earth, they remained formidable defenders during the final wars against Sauron. The Army of the Dwarves. The Dwarven armies were made up of heavily equipped warriors from the great Dwarven kingdoms and settlements. Dwarves were particularly famous for their toughness, discipline, and ability to fight in close quarters while wearing heavy armor. During the War of the Ring, Dwarven forces fought Sauron's servants in the north and defended their own territories. Their contribution helped prevent the war from becoming entirely focused on Gondor and Rohan. The Army of the Ents. The Ents were not traditionally an army, but during the War of the Ring, they became one of the most unexpected military forces in Middle-earth. Led by Treebeard, the Ents marched against Isengard after learning how Saruman's orcs were destroying forests for war. Their enormous size and strength allowed them to tear apart defenses, crush machinery, and overwhelm the fortress. With the help of the Horns, they effectively destroyed Saruman's military base without fighting like a conventional human army. The Army of the Eagles. The Great Eagles were not a conventional army either, but they could become a powerful force when Middle-earth faced a major threat. These enormous flying creatures possessed tremendous strength and could travel rapidly over distances that would take ground armies days to cross. They aided the Free Peoples at several crucial moments, including the Battle of the Five Armies and the final confrontation at the Black Gate. Their appearance could change a battlefield because ordinary ground troops had few ways to fight them effectively.